Hi there, this is Randy again with ofap.org. I just wanted to share with you what I carry in my bag, and actually I keep things fairly overloaded. So I'm going to upgrade to a larger bag that you can see here that handles 65 liters, but I'm going to try to minimize and do a little bit of cleaning up. When it comes to me, I'm kind of like an elderly hoarder.
I second the motion. We can't sit here. We need stuff.
So I need to minimize and change things up a little bit. But anyway, bear with me. We've had some near freezing weather in the last 48 hours, and it's kind of strange. It's warming back up, and mosquitoes are still just running us like mad. So I'm going to see if I can find some DEET in my bag, and then we'll break things out and give you a peek of what I carry. Well, my sprayer's failing. Guess I'll smear some of this around in squirt stage because it's not spraying. As you can see here, I've got things laid out. I'll see if I can kind of give you a feeling on what I use from left to right. Okay, so here's what we've got. I've laid my bedroll out, and these are just the straps and ties that go with it. And as you can see, I'm a maniac on cordage, but this is what I generally carry. This is very cheap. It's $1 blow-up pillow, and I may never use it, but it doesn't take up any space. As far as sharpening tools, I've got a Whitrock here and sharpening tool here. As you can tell, I'm pretty much Walmart league on most things, just because I'm old and limited on the amount to spend. But we've got a rain fly right here, a hammock rain fly, and that's the most minimal cover for water that a person could probably have. It'll keep the rain off of you, but it's a real tight, small space. But for just a get-home bag and emergencies, that's generally what I deal with. Right here, I've got a pretty good quality raincoat that I keep. Now this is just one of those cheap $4 blankets that you see at these retail stores, and I'll use it to carry so that I would have something to cover up with. But what I like about this, and I've mentioned it in the past, but I've cut an X in the center of this, and the reason that I did was so that if it's cold and dry out, I actually have just a hillbilly poncho, and you just literally pull this down over, and I really like the thing. It does a good job. This is as minimal as you can go, but I pretty well feel comfortable with it. Now beyond that, I've got, of course, this is inexpensive, but I've got a limb saw, and it's worked pretty good. I've only used it a few times. I know it's not high quality. This is a dirt cheap $5 knife that I built a sheath for, and see if you can tell there. And I have multiple cutting tools that I carry in my pocket all the time. But again, we're living on the cheap, but these seem like pretty good knives. This Camillus, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I've not put it to the full hardcore test, but the strength and that full tang blade, it seems like it's going to be a good knife. I know a lot of people run them down, and you got the same brand here, and they say that these are terrible as far as the cutting edge. Of course, that's just razor sharp as far as really trying to cut wood with it or anything like that. But I bought it for this blade, and so far, again, I've not used it much, but I enjoy it. I think it's a pretty good rig for the money. Paid about $26 for this, I think. Paid about $10 for this, so you see that I'm not in the big league as far as campers and preppers and survivalists. Beyond that, right here I've got this hatchet, and it's a cheap hatchet, but I put an edge on it and it seems to work pretty good. Gets me by. Now as far as warmth, again, I keep a couple of pair of wool socks, and that's a wool blend. But also, just common sense, a person should carry a t-shirt and a couple of pair of underwear. You may need to be wearing one set of clothes and washing another in the creek bed if times got tough enough. I like these. These aren't expensive. They're Wells Lamont gloves, but the leather that they're made out of and the quality, these fit my need. I've used these for years. Not this particular pair. I've been through 2 or 3 pairs, but I really like those. And again, on the cheap and common sense, we get into fire. I've got 2 containers with lighters here. Packages. I've also got this cheap mag bar, and as you've seen before in my previous videos, if you watched those, the 2-ounce finger sprayer of isopropyl alcohol, and with this knife also I've got, I can get this unsnapped here, but I've got a ferro rod, and I haven't used it. I always keep things like this for backup. I'll use my lighters and alcohol in an emergency first every time, but that's just the way that I am. Also, I've got a pair of pants that are spare, and they're large enough to go over a pair that I'm wearing, so just for warmth and to have an added pair in case they're needed. To me, that's real important. There are a couple of things here as far as they always say that you should carry tape, and I do. I carry some reflective in case I would need them to be noticed. Otherwise, I've got some black here. But within this, I've got a jar lid, and inside the jar lid I actually have a few tea light candles, and I just feel like something like that, depending on what you're doing, what the situation is, that's just good to have on hand. So I carry more of these things really than I should. If you count right there, I've got 4 or 5 sources for fire right off the bat, and I want to be able to cook, I want to be able to purify some water, and I want to be able to stay warm. So that's real important to me. Now beyond that, I've got a few more things. Let me set some of this aside. Another added item concerning fire, I've never opened this. I carry it with me. I used to play with these. If you're like I am, or used to be, when I was a kid, we were constantly making fires with magnifying glass. You've got some good clear weather a magnifying glass will always make fire for you. I've already used this today, was in serious need, but here's my lapel for mosquitoes. And now this right here, this is very thin. I only paid a few bucks for it, but for instance, if I was wanting to stay concealed, this rain fly, it's about a 7 by 9, I think, and like I said, it's just minimal as far as cover from rain. But I could actually, once it's in place, I could open this up, and it's quite thin, but I think it would be really good as far as adding some concealment if a person felt that they needed to. So it weighs nothing, it takes up very little space, so I always carry it. I've got a water bottle here. I also carry some containers that you've seen probably in the past on my videos. Some of this stuff stays in the Jeep, but the majority of this is all in my bag. And I know I carry too much stuff, but I'm paranoid to an extent. I never seem like I have enough. Now beyond that, over here, you're familiar with this. I always carry it. Matter of fact, it's got a can of Coke in it right now, and it's been in there almost 4 hours, and we'll see in a few moments, but I'm sure that it's refrigerator cold still yet. And that's just for my convenience. Right here, this is a life straw, and actually my nephew gave me this a couple of years back. I've never opened it. I plan on purifying water with fire unless I didn't have the ability to, and at that point I would use this. These are really good. I've done a lot of reading on them. They're not cheap. Most of the time you're gonna drop about $29 for one of those, but it can certainly purify your water for you, keep you from getting sick. I've got a phone case here. I've got a couple of sources of light. These things, they're only about $1 at Walmart. I haven't pulled the seals on these, but the batteries last a few years minimum as far as what I've seen. They're pretty bright, and for only $1 I keep a couple of those on hand. This is my emergency medical kit, and there's not a whole lot to it. See if I can show you here. I've got some tape. I've got some cheesecloth and a little bit of gauze. I've got several bandages here, just for emergency. I carry rubber gloves just in case they were needed, and just some common pills that the guy might need, as far as ibuprofen, aspirin, things like that. There is one item that I always carry, and I don't think it gets enough attention as times change and medical needs, but Campho-Phenique. You absolutely can't beat this. I use it for multiple things. There are several times that I've used this. I'll get a little bit of graphic here, maybe a little TMI, but Campho-Phenique can, even if you have problems with your feet breaking out and they sweat, you can put Campho-Phenique between your toes, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere and don't have a lot to work with. Put your socks back on, go to bed, and I guarantee you it will clear up any issues that you have. There are several issues beyond that. I'll add to those when I'm in a better frame of mind. Right now I can't think right off my head, but I would not do without the Campho-Phenique. This bag here is my fishing kit, and I have fishing line, I have bobbers, I've even got a cheap stringer, and of course fishing hooks and a couple of lures. And I hope that that's not my only avenue to eat, but I feel very comfortable having this on hand at a pinch. As you probably seen me use in the past. I've got cooking pots here. I've got stick stove, very important in my book. Over here I have a mini shovel that breaks out. It's actually pretty nice. And you lock this sucker down and might not need it, but if I do, I've got it on hand. So in my opinion, you can't beat that. Probably paid less than $10 for that. It's not high quality, but it'll work. It'll get you by. Okay, over here we've got a bit of food that wouldn't do me very long term, and I actually carry another bag that has much more of this, but that's just because I'm paranoid. Too much is better than not enough. I've got a few utensils. I actually love this little set right here, and this one's not been used, but I've had a couple of these over the years. Something that I like. Now this is an old Schrade. They used to have a lifetime warranty, and then they filed bankruptcy, but I think it's got a broken screwdriver tip, but other than that, it's got all kinds of multi-tools at the ready in case you need them. Also, this takes up almost no space, and if you have a real bad edge on something like this little hatchet right here, you can actually knock the dull off of it before you sharpen it, and I always carry one of those. This is just my opinion. It takes up very little space, but rather than trying to fashion carved sticks and what have you, if I needed to pick up a pot that was real hot, those channel locks do a great job. Now this right here, I use this on a stick over the fire. You can run a stick above the fire 18-24 inches with a little bit of work, and you can hook a pot with this, set it on the stick, and you've got it, you know, above the fire, and you can adjust it as for what height that you would need. That's just a barbecue skewer for charcoaler, and I keep it on hand. And a couple of more things. Right here, I want to talk about this a moment. This is the Eaton brand, and I'll put some details on it as far as the model and what have you. It's got a flashlight. It's not super bright, but works pretty well. But it's an emergency radio. It picks up AM, FM. Works pretty well in our area. AM is quite limited, but it also picks up the NOAA weather, which would be used for an emergency broadcast if something serious took place. And this thing actually charges with a wall charger and the USB, but also it has a hand crank, and I'll go into detail later on this, that allows you to get power if the thing is run down. And the good part about it is you don't have to rely on solar, any kind of battery. It's self-maintaining. The bad part is with these, you may crank for 5 minutes to get 3 minutes worth of radio signal, but at least it works, and it works well. They make a solar powered version, and again, I'll put details about this later in the video, but that's one of my favorite tools right there. I probably gave $40 for this. It's a lot cheaper now. I've had this a couple of years, and you can buy replacement batteries as far as charging it up. But that hand crank, that just blows my mind. That's the type of simplistic item that really gets my attention. And again, I'm always using more than, or carrying more than most people should, but this is just a little battery powered radio that uses AAA batteries, and it always works. I don't know how long you could run this, but it's probably didn't give $10 for it, but I could get a newscast if one was available, and I had no cell phone or the ability to communicate with anyone. So that's my secondary backup as far as radio. And I also carry this, and I've got a couple at the house. I've never broke this open, but if you had a need, at least you could have two-way communication with someone who is with you locally. And again, it takes up a little more space than I would like in my pack, but I feel more comfortable with it. That's just the old man in me. And last but not least, in a portion of this video, we're going to talk about the 10 C's. I believe his name is Canterbury. He's fairly famous the last few years. He talks about the 10 C's of survival. 5 of them are necessities, and 5 of them are added for convenience. And actually, I think that there are probably 14 C's. That's just my opinion and what I like to use. But beyond comfort, I think it's real important on these 10 C's to do some concealed carry. I make sure that I have a weapon with me at all times, and I'm a licensed carrier, but I also have backup of ammo that I carry in my bag. And you know, the use of weapons for the right reason seems to get overlooked in the news over the last year or two. Too many maniacs on earth making the common man look ridiculous. And just for the sake of being able to protect oneself, I believe that concealed carry is a very smart thing. You need to be licensed, you need to be legal, but I think it's a necessity in hard times. All of this, these supplies that I carry, I do purposefully because I don't always feel like things are going to go smooth every day. I'm not so paranoid that, like I said in the past, I don't believe necessarily that the world's going to end tomorrow, but on the short term, I'd sure like to be prepared. I'd like to be more prepared for the long term, but that's a work in progress. Now this bag is the bag that I carry my added food in. If I jumped out and needed to get from point A to point B, I would grab my main bag. I don't know over a long distance that I could carry both bags, but this one's always in my vehicle, and I've got more canned food, a few more items, just to like I said, have the comfort of knowing that I could last longer than just 2 or 3 days. I am a member of the NRA. I have been for years. That's just my beliefs and the way I see things. I don't always agree with the NRA's choices. They made some decisions in the last year or two with all of this gun rights that has flooded the news, and I haven't always agreed with what they say. But I also don't agree with states like California stating that NRA is a domestic terrorist group. That's just unbelievable. That's not even American. Anyway, that's a whole story in itself. Well, she's a little heavy on weight, but I like the way that this thing packs out. I'll likely go to the house and ponder minimizing.